Hi everyone, and welcome back to Empiricist Academy. In this video, I'm going to be going over the basics of predictive modeling. Predictive modeling is commonly used by data scientists. One of the most popular applications is for spam detection, where you predict whether an email is spam or not given the content of the email, such as the words contained in the email. Another very popular application in data science is handwriting detection, where we use the pixels of the written characters to predict what number or letter was written by a person. It can also be used in other fields such as healthcare to predict whether a person is healthy or unhealthy given the details on the diet of a person. So let's get started. Let us begin by just setting up a general framework for a predictive model. Since this is an introductory video, I'm going to be focusing on the case where our outcome variable of interest is just a binary variable. So by binary variable, I mean that the outcome variable y can only take on two values, either 0 or 1. So one example of this that we talked about in a previous video is y is equal to 1. If, let's say, we're doing spam detection, then our email can either be spam or it can be ham, which means that it's not spam. So y equals 1 if the email is spam. Email is spam. Or y equals 0 if the email is ham, which means that it's not spam. So here we're just going to be focusing on binary classification, and our goal in this case is we want to predict whether y is equal to 0 or 1 given the features of the item of interest. So we know that we have some relationship where outcome variable y depends on some features. So in the case of spam detection, these features can be the content of the email. For example, the words or phrases in the email. So here, x1, x2, all the way up till xk could represent the words in an email. So x1 here would index the first word in the email, x2 would index the second word in the email, all the way up till xk, which would index the last word in the email, if we're assuming that the email was of kth length. So our goal with predictive modeling is that we want to predict y using the features of the item. So using x1, x2, all the way up till xk if we have k features. In the case of spam detection, we want to predict if an email is spam given the contents of the email. We can imagine that certain words are going to be predictive of spam emails, such as money, free, win, and so on. Putting together our discussion so far a little bit more formally, here we have p, and p is a parameter that we're interested in estimating. We're interested in learning about this parameter. P is equal to the probability of y equals 1 given x. And let me just go over what this vertical line means. The PR just stands for probability, but this vertical line, so let me just write it here, means given or conditional on. So we can read this as p equals probability y equals 1 given x, or p equals probability of y equals 1 conditional on x. So in the case of spam detection, we want to estimate the probability that y is equal to 1, that the email is spam. So y equals 1 would be in spam email, given the content of the email, the words in the email. So given x, words in email. So we want to use a predictive model to essentially estimate the parameter p. So we want to estimate p using a model. That is, we want to find the probability that an email is spam given the contents of the email. So let's see how we can do that. So here I have the general framework of a predictive model. So here this is our predictive model, and the predictive model is essentially an estimator for the parameter of interest p. So the predictive model p hat is an estimator for our parameter p. So remember, estimator is a function of the data that's informative about our parameter. So in this case, the estimator estimates the probability that y is equal to 1 given the features of the item. In the context of spam detection, the predictive model estimates the probability the email is spam given the contents of the email. So this is what the predictive model looks like. So there are two components of the predictive model. The first component is that the predictive model is a function of the features x1, x2, all the way up till xk. So this is the item features. And what I mean by item is the item could be a person, or it could be an email, or it could be a country, and so on. So in the case of spam detection, x1 to xk is just the contents of the email, the words in the email. w1 to wk, this is the second component of the predictive model, is these are model parameters. Model parameters. And these are also referred to very commonly as weights of a model. So here's the entire idea. The estimator is telling us the probability that y is equal to 1 given the features of the item. So essentially what the predictive model is doing is relating the features that we have using these weights to give us an estimate for p hat. So I know this might be a bit general, so let's consider a very quick example in the context of spam detection. So example, okay, so suppose we want to write down a predictive model for detecting whether an email is spam or ham. So let's try to do that. So we could have probability, the estimated probability, so probability hat, where the hat denotes the estimator, the probability that an email is spam, given the words in the email, is equal to 1 over 100 times the number of times free appears in the email plus 1 over 10 times, let's say, the number of times when appears in the email. Okay, so just note that I'm making this model up on the spot. It might not be a very good predictive model, but essentially what the model is saying is the probability that a given email is spam is equal to 1 over 100 times the number of times that free appears in the email plus 1 over 10 times the number of times that when appears in the email, the word when appears in the email. So here in this case, 1 over 100 would be W1, this would be the first weight, and 1 over 10 would be the second weight. So for example, let's say we had an email where the number of free words was 10 and the number of time that when appeared in the email was 1. So then the probability that email is a spam email is going to be 1 over 100 times 10, which is going to give us 1 over 10 plus 1 over 10 times 1, because there's only one when in the email. So 1 over 10 plus 1 over 10 would give us 2 over 10, which would be 20%. So the probability that an email which contains the word free 10 times and the word when 1 times is a spam email, according to this predictive model, is 20%. So don't take this predictive model seriously. I just illustrated this as an example. So the main idea is that we're using the features in combination with the parameters, and we're coming up with a relationship and using the model to estimate the probability y is equal to 1 given the item features. So hopefully you have a better understanding of the framework behind a predictive model. In the next video, I'm going to be going over an example from healthcare where we're going to predict whether an individual is healthy or unhealthy, given information about their diet. And in that example, we're going to look at actual numbers. And I hope you find that example informative and it helps you understand the goals of predictive modeling and how they work.